Holy hell, we are back. Stay
It's been a
Elevated
bit.
Podcast. Yeah, it's been a bit. It's been a little bit. I'm Johnny JJ Touchton,
And I'm Kelly Brookins.
and you are listening to the Stay Elevated Podcast. Intro.
It's the only new stuff in my house is a Christmas tree and a couple of deer heads. Since the last podcast we did, a year and a half ago, something like that.
I'm not even in my house, so I got kicked out,
It,
which is
it
one of the
looks like a
reasons it's
house.
taking so long to record another one. Yeah, I mean, it's our little shed out here, but we have a lively three-week-old girl.
Yeah,
So
you definitely got some new stuff in your house going on.
yeah, the office got transformed into a nursery, so I got kicked out. So here I am.
It's new dirty diapers, new diaper
Mm-hmm.
genies,
That's right.
new vomit covered clothes.
New reasons why I'm not allowed to go in the woods.
But you
Still
found a
get on the
way.
boat. I
You
did
found a way a couple of
recently,
times.
a couple times. It's like pulling teeth on a horse, but made it work, made it happen.
Yeah. Well, we
Not
kind of
mad
had a
about it.
lot of stuff going on the last year and a half, and it's been tough to get us both on here. But I think we're finally settled down now. I've actually been able to get in the woods a little bit this year, and you have, and you made short work of your visits out there.
I take advantage of the time I'm given. That's for sure. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
We'll get into it. Yeah, we'll try and make this more regular. I would like to do it once a week, if not more than once a week, but once a week I feel like is manageable, and you and I both have enough to talk about that we could make it happen, I think.
yeah. I don't think it'll be a problem.
I've got 3 or 4 people that want to come on and talk. So I mean it, just finding the time. That's the big thing in between family and work and living. We don't get to do this for a
Adulting
living.
sucks.
Oh, adulting is terrible.
You
My
hear all these
boy,
people that
I
have
got
like 600 podcasts under their belt or
I know.
300 podcasts under their belt, and it's like, man, what do
Well,
you do for a living
that's what I was about
if
to
you can
say
do
is
this all the time?
they do that for a living. We don't have the luxury of doing that, but
Yep,
it's
that's right.
this is a good release though. I like it. I kind of came to that conclusion just recently. I was like, well, if I can't get in the woods because of life, then I can at least talk about it.
Yep,
And
talk about what we uh what we aren't able to do and would like to go do more.
that's right. Speaking of doing
Regular
more,
outdoorsman.
I just put in for my Southeast Alaska bear tag for
Did you?
2026. Yeah, and I was
2026, man,
randomly.
that is really planning out.
You have to, like, because 2025 is already spoken for, so it's an unguided trip, Southeast Alaska. Fly into the logistics of it are kind of up in the air a little bit, but fly into either Petersburg or catch a seaplane out to wherever we're going to stay. I'm planning on staying at one of the Forest Service cabins out there. They're like right on. A lot of them are right on the water, and the plane just lands right of the cabin, drops you off. The logistics are insane behind it because Alaska has this rule where you can't. At least they didn't. They had this rule up until a couple of years ago. I need to look into it again. Pretty sure you're not allowed to have a charter like where you're renting the boat, the skiff from, so you can get around because it's all water, it's all islands and stuff. They're not allowed to bring the boat to you. You have to pick it up from where their home base is and then motor the boat to wherever you're staying. It's a
I wonder why
clusterfuck.
they make you jump through hoops like that.
No idea. No idea. I've heard it labeled a lot of different things. I heard somebody label it the other day that it's borderline dangerous because I mean I'm
It's
not
water
familiar with
you're not
those.
used to navigating
Exactly. And those are big.
on probably a tiny little skiff
You
going
know,
through,
you lived in
on a
Florida for a long
regular day,
time.
5 foot waves.
Right. You lived in Florida for a long time. I live in Florida, and it's water is. I was a charter boat captain for a long time. I'm not worried about it, but it's one of those things. It's like I don't know these navigable waterways. I don't know how well they're marked. I'm not familiar with it. Why are you going to make me do this? I'll do it because I want to do it, but at the same point, it's like kind of sketchy. So I don't know. Trying to figure out the logistics behind it all. And you don't need a skiff. I've just as I understand it, it makes your ability to be more mobile. It makes you more mobile. Let's put it that way. So like you can bring like blow up, inflatable kayaks and all that stuff, and you can do all that stuff. But who wants to paddle for 25 miles a day?
And
You
how
know,
do those inflatable kayaks withstand a bear claw
not
if you
very
throw
well.
one into the kayak?
Not very
Yeah.
well. I've seen plenty of videos. Bears will be right up at the cabin and they want to chew on the inflatable. And
Or if you just throw a dead bear into it and a claw hits.
from what I understand, because you're gonna skin it out, you're gonna cape it out, skin it out, and then when you roll it all up, you know, be
Tuck the
cognizant of
feet
where.
away.
Correct. Just be cognizant of where the claws are. You should be all right. And they, some of these inflatables can hold a ton of weight. It's pretty impressive, to be honest with you, for what they pack down to. They pack down to like 10 pounds. So I mean, it's not like you're killing yourself on charges shipping it over there.
There's a guy down the road from me that's got one. I don't know if you can haul your own out there.
Yeah, you can. Wait, an inflatable?
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the goal if you're taking one of those. Which I don't know, man. Like I said, the logistics of
A
I've
long
still
way
got to
to
work out.
ride, but long
It
way to
is.
drive instead of fly. But well, then you have to catch a plane out there, so you couldn't get it there anyway, huh?
Well, the inflatable, as long as it packs down, you can ship it out there. You can ship all your gear out there. That's the smart thing to do. Is you pack everything into your cooler, ship it out there so it's waiting for you. Just have it held at the post office, and then when you get there, you've got your gear right. So you're not paying excess fees on the airline flight. It is telling me that it's trying to reconnect. Give me 1 second. You there?
Yeah, it was
It
you were
was
gone, and
buffering for a sec. Yeah.
you were
Hopefully,
gone, and it's blurry. Mine shows I'm 98% uploading, so I'm going good.
same. Yeah,
Oh,
same. I
okay.
don't know. It was buffering there for a second. Anyway, so it's cheaper to ship it out there. I don't know what you heard last, and then it's a lot cheaper than shipping it on an airliner. And then your gear's there when you get there. The ideal scenario would be then you load it onto a float plane, fly out to your cabin. You have a buddy who picks up the skiff. The skiff meets you out there at the cabin. Whatever.
Okay.
And then you go from there. The inflatables, as long as they're weighed accordingly, they're not super heavy, you can ship it. So I mean, I wouldn't worry about that too much.
This one down the road is it's like a hole, I guess, and then the inflatable wraps around it. So it's
Like
probably
a
a 10 foot
like a
long,
Zodiac almost.
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how
yeah,
you'd ship that,
yeah. That would be kind of tough. They make all kinds of
but might
different
be something we could use
ways to
for
do it.
the
I
Tacoma
I
float.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I listen. I'm just excited that I
That would
get
be
to do it.
cool.
So it'll be
Yeah.
fun. I want to do that, and then next year, which we have talked about numerous times, I really want to do that float trip down the Toccoa with you and see what we can see, because I think that would be, I think that if nothing else, it'd be a lot of fun, fly fishing and just floating
Is
down the river.
there in the Tacoma? Is there a lot of like really skinny water rapids that we go over to get
Not
from one section to the next, or is it just kind of river the whole way? Good deep river.
well, deep's a relative term. It depends
Yeah.
on how much rain y'all have had.
Navigable.
Yeah. I mean, they're not big rapids. They're not like it's not like we're shooting, class 5 rapids or anything.
I'm not worried about the rapids. I'm worried about getting out and having to drag the damn boat,
Yeah.
whatever we're using, across a bunch of, crap, a big rock bar or something like that. For how long?
Yeah.
Little
It,
ones are cool, but
in theory, it would be deep enough, and there are deeper stretches. You just gotta watch for it. I know we did some like family float fun over the summer, and it was dry, very dry, and your butt was bouncing over those rocks, and it was.
We get a lot more rain during the fall and winter. I mean,
That's right,
it's raining right
exactly.
now, so I
Yeah,
would assume it'd be a little more full.
I think that would be fun just to unpack on the national forest land, camp out. You can look for deer, I'll look for bear,
How
screw
long is the
around.
float where you actually have huntable area?
There's a lot of it. The river just floats. It starts in Suches, I believe, like up in the high country up in Suches.
Mm,
And all it's going to take is knocking on a door and, hey, sir, do you mind if we launch our boat here? All right, thank you. And somebody drops us off. And then the benefit of this type of trip is my father-in-law lives on the Toccoa down near Blue Ridge. So we could float
we
pretty
just
much the
float to
whole
his
river.
house.
Exactly. Just float to his house and unpack and go. The whole trip, I mean, if you wanted to, you could float the river in a day if you wanted to, but
Yeah,
obviously the goal is pull over and
take our time and hunt.
exactly. Do a little fly fishing in between.
That'll be fun. Another thing I'm gonna put in for next year, and I don't know what time of year, and it would really suck if I get it and can't afford to do it. But it's $10 for either resident or non-resident elk tags in Kentucky for the lottery,
Oh my God. That'd be so much fun.
and there is public land to hunt them up there.
It's very doable from what I understand too. Because
Yeah,
my
and I
cousin
think it's
was
around
stationed in
500
Kentucky.
bucks
Yeah. My
if
cousin
you're a
was stationed in
non-resident and you
Kentucky
get
for
it.
the longest time when they were like reintroducing the elk and stuff. And when they, had a stable enough population, they let hunters come in and manage it, which is the right way to do it. He was every year, dude, put in, put in, put in. We never got drawn, but it was, I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat. That'd be so
I've
cool.
never put in for it. Yesterday, you know how you go on Zillow and you dream and you're looking at properties, just making circles like, man, I would buy that, but I can't. And one of the properties I opened up was like 100 and I think it was 150 acres, 50-ish, 150-ish acres for 130,000, if you can believe that. And it's conservation land, so nobody can come in. There's no mineral rights really attached to it, but they have it's hunting property now, and they have a hunt stand picture as the first picture on the Zillow, and then you scroll down and you see these giant whitetail and a bunch of big elk, and then you've got some elk with collars on them, where I guess they trank them and collar them and turn them back loose. And it made me, that was my rabbit hole. Like, if I were to ever afford a place like that, I could put in for a lottery to hunt one once in my life. And then I looked it up. It was, and like I said, it's only $10, and it's a lottery every year. How many hunters put in for it? I don't know, but I'm sure
Probably
there's
a
some
lot.
kind of yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of stats on it somewhere that you can look up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Green Jeans. The elk was attacking my dog. I don't know
Yeah,
what to
yeah,
tell you.
yeah, yeah. No, couldn't do couldn't do that. But I mean, it's not that expensive, and it's not the same kind of terrain you'd be traveling through in say Colorado. I mean, it's hilly. Don't get me
Yeah, it's
wrong, but it's
definitely
not like
it's
out there.
mountainy, but from what I understand from it, they've reclaimed a lot of those old coal mines and stuff where they just kind of clear cut everything, and they've made like new kind of prairies out of them almost. And the elk just I mean, elk used to live there, you know, back in Daniel Boone's days. I mean, it's natural for them to be there anyway. It's cool
I
to see
went
them back
through
on the landscape.
I went through Cherokee National Forest just visiting it and saw them out on the side of the road.
Isn't that wild?
Even though they're like pets, they're not afraid of anything. It's just awesome to look out there and see this big ass elk just standing in the middle of a field.
Yeah, I mean, we
Not
we
something
went
you're
up
used to
to
seeing in the southeast much.
the Great Smoky Mountains National Park as a again family trip, and man, the visitor center there, you just see them. I mean, it's like dusk happens and they're there, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm seeing an elk in North Carolina. This is the coolest thing.
Yep.
So
And turkeys. I mean, there's all kind of stuff up there. Just big animals, lots of animals. You can't hunt them, but it does. Even just seeing what is basically pets makes you, I don't know, makes your blood boil a little bit wanting to go do it.
speaking of turkeys, did you start an OnlyFans account? Because I can see your hat, and it's just the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I forget where I got that. I think I saw it online somewhere um, and picked it up. A TikTok shop or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
I
funny.
love it. That thing's fantastic.
I got it when I shot my birds last year. Now I just wear it all the time. Probably got a big
Dude, I'm
sweatband on it. I can't really see it, but
excited for some turkey season, man. It's gonna be good.
I got
Can't
to
wait.
write either one or two stories for Gone this year. I sent a thing to
The
the
Georgia
editor. I
Outdoor
think
Network.
yeah, Georgia Outdoor Network. I sent a thing to them. I think it was earlier this year, asking if they wanted a story for them, and they said, "Yeah, right." I don't know if I'm going to write for both birds or um, do a story separately for them. Probably both within 2 days of each other, and it was fun
Yeah,
trip with them.
yeah, that's sweet, man. I was stoked that you got those birds last year too. I mean, that was when you called me, I was like, God dang it, dude! I wish I was there. That'd be sweet. Because I've been trying to get
Man,
you hardcore into turkey hunting for a long time, and to hear you be able to call them in like that, I was like, that's what it's all about.
yeah, a lot of you, if YouTube was around back when my dad was hunting, hardcore. Now he's got two or three spots at the hunt and lease where he can drive pretty close to them and go, sit in the box or sit in his tripod and does well every single year. He's already killed a really nice buck this year. But if this stuff was around, these resources were around, there's a gnat flying around. Back when he was hardcore like we're doing, he would have been freaking slaying deer and turkeys. But that's how I got into it and got learning about how to call in a bird. And honestly, most of it's luck. The first one I walked out in the afternoon, second afternoon of the season, saw a couple of birds in a private field, sat up against the wood line where I knew they were, well, where I was hoping they were going to come and roost on our property, and started calling, and they started gobbling right back. And
Mm, God, that's a good feeling.
made a big circle out into the clear cut, and one came to within about 35 yards and busted him, and kind of got the, you know, knocked the dust off a little bit, got those jitters out, and not the next morning, but the following, I had watched them go through a field or through a clear cut, a fresh clear cut, and disappear into the woods. I knew they were roosting over there somewhere, but I didn't see them actually fly up or hear them fly up. And I just laid down in this, the edge of this big brush pile and started calling, just soft calling first thing, and they were gobbling on the limb. There were three turkeys, three gobblers, and the other two went the other direction. And the one I killed, I probably called him for 25 minutes, just back and forth, real soft calling, but he was he was eating it up, and he came right
What were
up
you
the
doing?
hill.
Just little kind of chuck chuck or cluck cluck or
Yeah, little.
box call or pot call?
No, it was a slate call.
Nice.
I was doing, yeah, more just purring and a little,
Hmm.
chuck chuck purr, but real soft. And then I'd quit. He'd gobble, and then I'd sit there for probably 2 or 3 minutes without doing anything. And sometimes he'd gobble again,
That pisses him off.
but I had stopped calling, and I didn't hear him. So last year, I know when I was talking to you about it, we talked about me not knowing what a drum was, because people always on YouTube videos are like, he's drumming, you can
He's
hear him
drumming.
drumming. And I'm like, man, I don't hear anything like that on your video.
It's
And
hard
this
to hear
turkey
on a
got close
video.
enough that I could
Yeah,
I could feel it,
feel it in your
that
lungs,
dong, dong. And I thought, oh crap, that is definitely
dude.
what
When
that
they
is.
get
That is. And
when
then I
they
flipped to the left, and I just see this big ugly head sticking around the brush pile. He's 4 yards
God,
away from me.
dude, when they get that close and they start drumming and spitting, it's like, oh, this is a dead bird. I can't wait.
Yeah. And
It's
I
just
don't
the
know if
greatest thing.
I don't know if I have issues with that frequency or whatever it is, but I never heard him spit. But I kept hearing that he'd gobble, he'd.
They don't spit all the time, but it's one of those things where it's like when they're like really fired up, I'll hear it a lot of times. You'll hear that dum, and then
Okay.
it's almost like they're not spitting per se. It's the sound they're making. It's almost like a pressure release valve on a semi. It's almost like they're
Oh,
they're
letting all that air
overinflated.
out.
Yeah, and they're just and they're like kind of just exhaling a little bit or something. That's kind of that's what I equate it to anyway. When you hear
Well, when I
that, you hear the
realized
wings start raking in the leaves. You're like, oh God, he's
I
coming.
realized how close he was when he stuck his head out around the brush pile. And he's like, I think I stepped it off. It was either 4 yard. It was 4 yards or 6 yards, whatever it was, right there. And I couldn't shoot him. I couldn't swing him. I mean, I I probably could have swung and shot him, but there was a big giant stump behind the brush pile that they didn't cut down when they clear cut. And he kind of worked his way around looking down at the decoys that were in front of me. And when he gobbled right behind me, I thought, okay, he's behind the stump, and just split second stood up, turned around, and he wasn't there. And then he stepped out from behind the stump, and I shot him. And he was just under 30 yards away when I shot him. Flopped,
Nice.
right there. That was exciting, man.
Yeah,
And right
that's
right
sick.
next to a dirt road, I could drive my truck right up to him. I didn't have to carry a 20-pound bird through the woods. I think that one had a 10.5 inch beard, an inch and a quarter spurs, and the first one I killed had an 11-inch beard and just 1 inch spurs.
How'd you cook
But
it?
my I actually haven't. Oh yeah, I cooked the breast of one of the breasts in a crock pot. But I kept the legs. I'm gonna do a crock pot with the legs. A lot of people were
Mm,
telling me just get rid of them, but
no,
the
don't do
guys
that.
that are at my lease, they're like, man, that's the worst thing you can do. They're so good. Put them in a crock pot. And,
I tell you,
there's a lot of videos on that. I just haven't done it yet.
we we went up to the property, the farm up in Georgia, North Georgia, and I took a buddy. He's just getting into hunting, and so it's kind of like I don't want to say babysitting. It's not the right word. He's self sufficient. He's smart with a gun. He knows all that stuff. Ex military, but he's learning, right? So it's
Showing them the turkey ropes.
showing him the ropes. Period. And it's just one of those things where it's like being a guide. You have that guide mentality, so you're stressed the whole fucking time you're there. You're like, I really hope this guy's having a good time. I really hope that he gets to shoot something, yada yada, the whole shebang. So it was just stressful leading up to it. We pull into the property. The way the property runs is got a long driveway from the road, and there's a big power line that runs up the mountain. And of course, Georgia Power keeps that pristine, and I think it's Georgia Power. Anyway, I was like, we need to stop here. I got a diesel truck. It's loud as shit. So I was like, we got to stop here and we got to go look in that power line. They might be sitting there. And so we get out day one, like afternoon one, right? Get out, creep up there. I don't see anything. And I'm like, all right, well, let's grab our gear, walk down to the house. They might be out in the big pasture. Let's get set up. I just didn't want to make a whole bunch of noise before we get a chance to shoot something. I'm walking and got a different angle up the power line, and there's a damn big Tom just staring right at us way up the mountain. I'm like, God damn it. So I knew they were
We're
there,
too
so that was
late.
a good thing. Yeah, that was a good thing. But I was like, well, we just got busted. It is what it is. And the next 2 mornings we sat out there and we heard one gobble, and that was about it. And it was brutal because I'd been getting them on camera for pretty much every day, every morning for like the month previous. And again, that guide mentality, you start to stress. And we were sitting there. It might have been the last afternoon, dude. I can't remember, but sitting on the side of the mountain with the pasture right in front of us, right? Got the decoys out and everything. I'm just sitting there kind of soft calling off and on. It's not a big property, so it's not like you can walk around a whole lot. And there's only
Right. You got to
certain
bring them
areas.
to you
Yeah, and there's only certain
or
areas
be
where they
where they
can
want to
roost.
go.
Be where they want to go is pretty much it. There's a nice creek that runs through it, and they get down there and they get water. They like to roost. They have two different roost locations. They'll roost on the creek in some of the tallest trees there, some of the poplars there, or they'll go right up the mountain and roost on the very highest point of the mountain right there.
Is the creek down the one down where I found the arrowhead?
Yes.
Sweet. Okay, I know what
Yep.
you're talking about.
And so they had to have been roosting up on top of the mountain, and they were doing their rounds up there because mid afternoon, just sitting there, it's kind of hot, sitting there soft calling, and all of a sudden I just hear this. I'm like, I hear something, and it's unmistakable that an animal's
Especially when there's
coming.
more than one.
Yeah, it sounds like a herd of elephants coming through the leaves, and I told my buddy, I'm like, they're coming. Just get ready. And they came. There's like it's not a roadway. It's like an old forest road almost that was kind of right above us. And I had my neck craned as hard as I could to the left. He was sitting on my left side, and I see this redhead pop out 3 yards from us and stare right at me. And I'm like, I didn't even want to close my eyes because turkeys.
Can't
And I was
hardly
just like,
breathe.
dude, I was just like locked on this bird for the longest time. And three or four jakes ended up walking down, and they walked right down in the clearing, and they saw that decoy and puffed up, and they were all pissy. And I whispered to him because we had pre-planned it. I was like, all right, 3, 2, 1, shoot. And I was like, shoot the bird closest to you. Got the gun up to my shoulder. He had his gun laying down or something because he was trying to get comfortable. So he's trying to get it up. And I'm like, all right, I'm not paying attention to him at this point. I'm like, I'm shooting a bird. So I was like, 3, 2, 1, shoot. Bang. And my bird goes down. I don't hear him shoot. He goes, you shot the bird that I was going to shoot. I was like, that wasn't the one closest to you.
Shoot a
And
different one.
I was like, shoot a different one. They jumped, but they didn't run off. They ran up
Yeah.
the mountain a little bit. And I don't know how I did it, but there was like a whole, like, yeah, a little technical difficulty there. I guess you're trying to buffer or something like that. That's all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so get back to the story. I shot my bird. There's like a little hole in the brush that goes through. He shoots his bird through that hole. It was fantastic. Got our 2 birds for the day and good to go.
The
And
pictures were awesome too.
yeah, we
I
have
think
this
I
whole.
saw one with the creek like behind you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's where I do all my pictures up there. Is I try to get the creek in the picture. Actually, it sucks because the 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 tree, there's like a big cedar tree that I would take all my pictures in front of. It blew over in one of the tornadoes that came through, and so now I don't have a tree to take pictures in front of. And but I don't know, make it work. We pulled the old Jeep out and got some pictures on the Jeep. It was pretty neat, pretty good stuff.
With the birds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think I remember seeing those. I'll have to look at them.
Yeah, I'll send them
Are
to
they
you.
on your Instagram?
Maybe, I don't know.
The
I
Stay
probably should.
Elevated podcast Instagram. Is that what it
Yep,
is?
that's right. I think I did throw them on there. To be honest with you, let me just look real quick. But the story I want to hear, because you've been trying to get me to do it, is I really want to go to Cumberland Island.
Oh, man, that is such a fun place.
How
Yeah,
was it
I
this
went.
year?
It was fun. I knew a lot more this year than I did last year. Obviously, last year I went and it was my first year going. I didn't know. I literally knew nothing about the property other than it was going to be similar to some of the areas that you and I hunted in Florida for however many years we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the terrain was the same. They've got a lot of what is it, live oaks, which are their white oak. I guess that's white oak family, and then the laurel oaks are the red oak family. These deer and hogs, and honestly the horses too. That's pretty much what they're eating out there. We're all eating green acorns, so they were all dropping. The white oaks were dropping like crazy, but they were all green, and they were tearing them up. I assume they had to, you know, turn brown before that. That's the only time I ever see them eating here. But
If they're on the ground, I've seen them eat it. It's green, or I feel like once they turn, I don't know. Now I say that, I probably shouldn't just say that. I don't know
they
if they
were
turn
bright
brown
green,
and it's
like
more.
they'd been knocked out
Yeah,
during a
I don't know if it's
storm. I mean, that's what
more
it seemed like.
palatable or what, but I know I don't know. I know I see them eating green acorns all the time. I just I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it if they eat brown or green acorns. I just know they like the white oaks over the red
I
oaks.
know last year that's what I kind of focused on was the live oaks, where I found a bunch of live oak trees, and I just find spots in the palmettos that were 10, 15, 20 yards across and set up on them, or set up where I could shoot a trail going between two big openings like that. And last year got lucky, killed a hog and killed a doe out of the same tree one afternoon, and then one in the next evening I killed a doe. And this year I went up to that area, and there were a bunch of folks that usually do the archery hunt, which is the hunt 1 month before I go during muzzleloader. But because of the storms that we had this year, they canceled that archery hunt. So these fellas were actually hunting. They went in. I already had my stuff over there, but they were coming in. There were like three of them, all hunting within about 150 yards of each other, all in that area. And I met them and talked to them, and I said, yeah, told them what I killed last year, and I said that's okay. I'll just, I know what I'm looking for. I'll go find something else. So I wound up being 600 or 700 yards away from there and found an area. Saw a bunch of hogs while I was walking the scout, and a bunch of deer signs, some big grubs.
How big are the
And
deer there? Like Florida deer?
yes, they're just like Florida deer, and some of them maybe even I don't know. The biggest buck that was killed there, the biologist that was there aged him at 5.5 years old, and he was 111 pounds. And he
Smaller
was
than
a
Florida
you know
deer.
he was a nice, a hundred
Basket rack.
and 15-inch rack, but I think he was a 9 or a 10. I can't remember, but
9 or 10,
really nice
115
deer.
inches.
Yep,
That's
yep,
crazy.
really nice looking
That's
deer, and he looked
so it's
it
like
looked
it's Florida.
huge on that. on that deer.
Florida, some areas, other areas, maybe even smaller than Florida. But that's.
Yeah.
I would like to talk to the biologist. How the hell do they get deer over there? Not people. How do the deer get over there? And how does the population not become, what's the word I'm looking for?
Out of control.
Not out of control. I was thinking, how does their family tree not just have no branches, just go straight up? Inbred. How are they not
Well,
inbred?
I'm almost positive that there are deer that come from the mainland because last year the doe that I killed, he aged at 1.5 years old, and it was a 110-pound doe. And he said the average doe out there is, I think he said,
Eighty.
70 or 80 pounds for a big mature doe.
Yeah.
And
So
everybody said this had to have come from the mainland, but back in the, I think they're saying 80s and 90s, they've been doing the hunt for years and years and years. But right where the mansion's at, you could go out there at any given time at night, I guess so, at night at any given time and shine a light, and there'd be 60 deer out there standing in the yard of the mansion.
that's incredible.
But the biggest deer were 60 pounds,
Right.
So they've really controlled the population. They've killed a bunch of deer every year to where they were killing 40, 50 deer in the cooler when they were starting then to we probably had, I think there were 35 or so hunters, give or take. And we had probably close to 20 animals in the cooler after the 3-day hunt. 2/3 of them were probably pigs.
That's a good case study where yes, genetics do play a role in deer size, but I would wager that nutrition plays a lot larger a role.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
you have a lot of food, a lot of soft mass, a lot of acorns, a lot of persimmons, stuff like that, you're gonna grow bigger deer. You go to an island, take the Keys for example. Even I mean, I know key deer, quote unquote, a subspecies if you want to call it, but I mean, what the hell are they eating? Grass. And those things are about as big as
People's
about as big as my Brittany over here. I mean,
yeah, people's gardens that are
right,
there.
right. They're eating the freaking mangoes that fall off the tree, the marijuana plants that they grow in the backyard.
Yeah, they're growing down there.
Right. So I
But
mean, that's pretty
I
crazy.
know that the deer come in from the mainland. It's a river, and deer cross rivers and lakes all the times. I mean, there's armadillos out there. Nobody brought armadillos to the island. They're just there. They've been there for probably hundreds of years, thousands of years. Who knows?
Are there any bears out there?
No bears, and they say there's only about 250 or 300 hogs out there. But man, I
How
saw
do they
hogs
know
every
that?
single time just by going out and
Trapping them?
see in different areas. They probably have drones that fly over too. I don't know. I know the biologist kills around 250 hogs every year by himself. And then we do, there's 6 hunts, I
Hang on,
think.
back up, back up. The
Yeah,
biologist culls 200 to 250 hogs per year on his own.
by himself, yeah. And he has a sweet rifle setup too.
I would wager that there's more than what they say as far
Oh,
as
yeah.
hogs out there. Then that's impressive.
There were a lot more. I saw a lot more this year than I saw last year. Now, last year I was really only trying to find deer and just happened upon several hogs. This year, I just wanted to go out there and have fun and see what I could take. So I found this. I found a spot actually close to the water, close to the marsh. I had to abandon my original plan. And first year taking a one stick out, I got rid of my sticks, my climbing sticks from my saddle, and I used my one
How'd you like
stick.
it?
And I love it, man. I could carry it everywhere. I've got a tideway bag that it straps on, and I think my stick with everything on it weighs like 5.5 pounds with the rope and everything, and then my my rappel line and all the rest of my gear is probably another, I don't know, 3 pounds. And then I don't carry a lot in the woods with me. I'm not filming my hunts or anything anymore. I may do that again one day, but I just didn't. I haven't this year at all.
That was going to be a conversation after the podcast. We need to start working on some film and hunts.
I might. I just,
It's such a
I
pain, I
lost
know,
some
but
opportunity last year. Lost some opportunity last year. Lost opportunity the year before, and I'm out there to hunt and try to take what I'm hunting. And also, I'm finding that I'm looking through the camera. I'm looking at the camera lens, and I'm
you're
not
not
looking at
looking at
the
yeah,
big picture deer. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
zooming in on this one deer. I'm not seeing the whole thing. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting an old man mentality or something like that, but I go out there in the morning and want to see the woods wake up. I want
No,
to see it my whole hunt. You know what I mean?
I agree. I mean, I'm with you. I would much rather see. I would much rather be in the moment than
Mm.
trying to film it, trying to monetize from that. That being said,
It'd be cool if somebody was over
unless
my shoulder filming it. You know,
100%, 100%. If we had the budget to do that, then I'd be all about it. But I mean, you got to start somewhere. I think. Yeah. No, I don't know. Maybe you and I can just trade off or something. I'll film you. You film
do a
me.
little bit of that this year. That'll work. But yeah, so
Yeah,
I
we
went
could.
out and found this spot that, I mean, a bunch of cedar rubs, mainly what they were rubbing in this spot, and then some pine trees too, but mostly big cedars. And there was a good amount of hog activity, and the leaves were just turned over. It's not rototilled, but just leaves turned over where deer and hogs have come through, and they're just, every day eating up the acorns. And
Turkeys out there?
there are turkeys out there, a lot of turkeys, but you can't hunt them at all. I did not see any this trip, but I saw probably 20 turkeys last year. Just, I mean, they kind of move all over the island. Some guys saw them way out by the beach, which I was on the intercoastal, I guess you'd call it, a river side of the island, the west side of the island, whereas the beach is out towards the east side of the island. That's where the fellows that were saying they saw turkeys saw them. But I think shooting light, I think, was at 614, and it had to have been 619 or 620. A big group of hogs came through, and I said, okay, I'll go ahead and shoot one. And shot one in the head at about 15 yards, and as a muzzleloader or handgun only hunt.
What'd you
So I
shoot
had
him?
my 44 mag, and I had my muzzleloader. So I shot with my muzzleloader, and they all kind of scattered and then came back looking at the hog I just shot because it's kicking up dust and stuff. And another one came and I actually ranged it with my rangefinder after it dropped. It was 13 yards and I
Jeez.
didn't have time to reload. So I just reached in my bag and pulled out my 44 and leaned around the tree one handed and shot him in the head. And it dropped right there. And then I had to drag them both 400 ish yards because
Oof.
you can't carry any kind of cart off the trail. You cannot bike off the trail. You can only, either gut and quarter in the field or drag them out to the road, to a passable road with a vehicle. And if you can get that to one of them roads, they'll and they'll call them or text them. They'll come pick up whatever you kill.
Well, that's nice. That's a cool service.
Yeah, yeah. But
And then how are
so
you storing the
killed.
meat down there?
They have a big walk-in cooler that
Nice.
everybody hangs their stuff in. Some people will skin their stuff the first day and then put their cooler inside the cooler. The way I've done it the past 2 years is I will get whatever I'm going to get, let it hang until Thursday, and then either Thursday morning or Thursday night, I'll take off a hunt and do my skinning and quartering. Then that's what I did this year. I took off the morning and skinned the two hogs, and then went out, that evening and shot a doe. But it was fun. Jameis, my buddy, my boss, he goes with me or has gone with me the past 2 years, and he actually went a year or two before me. Also, hasn't had the same success. He's had a couple of mishaps where I think one year the primer fell out of his muzzleloader when he was trying to shoot it. He just heard the click.
Oof.
This year he pulled the trigger and his cap went off, but it was raining and his
Wet
powder
powder.
didn't ignite. Yeah, and the pigs are 20 yards from him, but it's just, I mean, that's hunting out there, and you're literally just walking around in whatever the weather is. You got 3 days to hunt. You go on a Monday, you set up camp, you go through their safety meeting, and you go scout for however long you've got to scout. I think I had about 2.5 hours this year to scout for the first hunt or for the first morning, and then you've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to hunt, and you pack up Friday morning and get back on the ferry to the mainland.
What are you looking for? Like when you get out there,
Hmm.
new area,
Yep.
generalized anyway. What are you looking for as far as sign and where you want to post up?
Sure. So the first thing I'm looking for is somewhere that I can see more than 3 yards because it is very thick in a lot of areas. It's a lot of There's a lot of pine forest, and it's really big, old, mature pines that you can't put mine, yours, and then both of ours again, arms around. And underneath it, you've got a lot of palmettos, or I think it's wax myrtle. Maybe it's wax myrtle. It's not
The
privet, but
waxy leaves.
it grows similar. It kind of looks like a little oak leaf, but I think it's wax
Yeah.
myrtle. But the stuff grows really thick.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a bunch
And
of
it
other
never
really
never
thick stuff
drops its
down there.
leaves.
Never drops its leaves. So first, I'm looking for areas that I can. They're off the road a little ways. I never hunted more than, or never hunted less than 200 yards off the road, which sounds like it's not that far, but when you're going through this garbage, it's
And it's an island. I mean,
yeah, you can
kind of
only go so
limited.
far anyways. But the first, to be fair, I mean, I hiked 3.5 miles just to get to my spot going straight east last year for my first day of hunting. So it's a pretty wide island. You could, but you also can't get too
Straight
far from trails either.
straight east. Which side of the island is the campground on? Is it on the east side
It's
or the
on the
west side?
west side. It's on the west side.
God dang. All right, I got you. I'm tracking now. All right. My lefts and rights got messed up there. We're good. I'm
Yeah.
back.
So yeah, think of Tampa being the campsite and
Yep.
Daytona being the beach,
Got it.
if that
I'm
makes
tracking now.
sense.
There's a reason I'm drinking coffee, okay? It
Yep, yep.
might be late in the morning, but with the 3 week old, my mind is mush.
But most of the areas I found that I actually hunted were anywhere from I have a 15-yard wide area to a 40 or 50-yard wide area. And most of the guys that I spoke to, there were a lot of guys that were hunting really thick stuff like I was too. But most of the guys that were down there were hunting stuff that was really easily navigable. They could get off the road. They could walk kind of a long ways in. I mean, some of them were seeing 100 yards. There was never a place that I could see, 100 yards unless I was walking to another place. So 200 yards while, you know, hunting where we hunt here in Georgia, um, probably some of the guys that hunt in the mountains, that's not too far for them to go either. In this really thick stuff where there is no way to not make any noise when you're walking through it, 200 yards is a long way into the woods. But I also went in a couple of spots where I killed those hogs was just over 400 yards into the woods, and I think the furthest was like 700 or 800 yards into the woods off of a trail. So you take it main road, then you've got walking trail, then you've got woods. You cannot take a vehicle of any sort, be it car, bike, scooter, anything, off of a road, and then you cannot. So you can't take your bike onto a walking trail, and then from the walking trail, then I would walk, say, my 200 to 700 yards into the woods. But that's what I'd look for, spots that I can see 15 to say 50, 60 yards tops, and then I'd look for the oaks.
White
The
oaks.
laurel oaks were really tiny little, almost like our pin oaks
Mm-hmm.
that we have, the size acorns, and then the white oaks, grandfather or not grandfather, live oaks that were there were probably as big around as your thumb.
Damn, that's pretty big.
Yeah, they're pretty big ones, and they were. I mean, it was littered all over the ground where you could find them this year, and so I'd hunt those, and then I'd look for feed sign. So I'd find where they're actually, because there's a lot of areas where it was just covering the ground. You could almost fall on them, and the deer just weren't there for whatever reason. They weren't there. But I'd find where the deer were coming through feeding, and I'd look for a buck sign around that, either scrapes or rubs. Their main rut is probably the first week or two of October on the island,
When is the hunt?
and we were there the first week of November.
Okay. All
And
right.
that's what it is for that muzzleloader hunt every year. So they were still doing their thing. Like maybe it was a secondary rut, but there were still a lot of fresh. The morning of the first hunt scrapes, a lot of really new rubs. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then a lot of guys down there will do walking, where they're just kind of slip hunting through the place. And my style is more find the
Sit and wait.
sign and sit on it. Yeah, and I've had a lot of success doing that there, just like I do here. The last night of the hunt, we kind of pulled an audible because there were a lot of people up on the north end of the island where we were at, and Jameis and I went south, and we got to a certain point, and I started seeing tracks crossing the road, but it was impenetrable on the left side of the road headed south, so it'd be the west side of the road, just impenetrable. So I was I was telling Jay, I'm like, man, I really want to walk in the woods here. He wanted me to go with him to see some spots that he knew about down there, and I'm like, man, this is our last hunt. Let's split up. You go where you want to go. I'm gonna go in here to this new area, even if I don't see anything. Maybe it's something that I can come hunt next year. So I found this little tiny trail that you could, if you turn your shoulder sideways and get on your knees, you could kind of walk through. And I got in there and started finding some of those openings and found a lot of deer sign. Didn't see a whole lot of buck sign, but I found a lot of deer sign, trails and tracks where you could actually see the toe prints in the sand and all that because it had rained. So I knew it was fresh, found some poop, some deer poop, and sat on that. And I think about 20 minutes before dark, a small group of three does came in, and then another bigger deer behind it that I couldn't tell what it was. I assumed buck because it was a lot larger than the does, but they want you to kill everything you see. And I didn't know if that bigger deer was going to get to me. So, and I only took the 44. I only took my pistol that night. So I just, I didn't have anything to lean on. So I just held it up, and the
God, you
biggest
raw
doe that I
dogged
could,
it?
yeah, 30 yards away, shot.
Jesus. 30 yards, raw dog and a 44 mag.
Yeah, it gets better. I shot, it mule kicked, it ran, it spun around and looked at me, facing straight at me. So these little deer, you can imagine, I've got like an
Yeah, I know,
8-inch
little
chest to
narrow.
shoot at.
Yep.
I thought, okay, well, I'm going to put another one in it if it gave me. Now I've already shot it, so I have no problem hitting it again. If that was my first shot, I would not take that shot. But I saw it mule kick, knew it had to have been a pretty good hit. I was going to put another one in it so I wouldn't have to track through all this crap. So now it's about 60 yards. I put it right on its chest. I probably aimed at its nose and pulled the trigger and saw it really hunch up. So I hit it again, or so I thought hit it again. It peels off. I go and look where it was standing, and there's a cedar tree this big around.
No.
I'll send you the picture, and it's blown in half. Like there's this much of
Destroyed it.
this cedar tree that's this big that's just blown in half. I completely missed the deer the first shot. It hit that cedar tree, and I guess the shrapnel wood from the shot hit it, and it mule kicked. I did not have a hit. There was no hole. The only thing that killed that deer was my 60-yard head-on facing me shot with the 44 Magnum pistol or the revolver.
No shit.
And we had to do some tracking because it wasn't bleeding a whole lot, but we wound up finding it. I think we found it just barely under 100 yards from where I shot, but we tracked probably 400 yards all through the palmettos where it was going through, and finally laid down and died. Yeah. But, I'm humble because I could go next year and not kill anything.
For sure.
But it feels good to go down there to a place like that where it is pretty highly pressured by all these guys that are all hunting on one island, not knowing anything about it. It's not a place I can ever go scout. I mean, I could, but I'd have to go down during the season, catch a ferry, ride a bike up there because you can't use that boat launch, and you can't dock and use that campground or anything like that during not a hunt. It's not a public campsite or anything like that. So you'd have to go to the south end of the island, bike all the way up, and then go scout. And
so you're just using like
it's 5 hours away
from
from
hunt stand or something. Go hunt.
Can't even use hunt stand. It's there's no cell service out there hardly. So I'm using it's an app called Avenza that you can download maps and you can drop a pin. It's just a universal just dropping a teardrop looking pin, and you can name it, but all it is but unless you click on the breadcrumb, you can't see what it was. So as I'm walking through the woods, I'm pinning, 3 rubs, scrape, double tree, possible, saddle stand, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I find my way back in the dark in the morning or in the afternoon. I come in the daylight, but and try to find it. But yeah, you can't really use Hunt Stand or Onyx down there because there's no service. Maybe Onyx uses satellite, but they say you can download offline maps on Hunt Stand, but it didn't work.
Oh, it didn't work.
It wasn't
really? I was
working
going to
right.
say I've never done it with Onyx, but you're supposed to be able to download maps and be able to use it offline. Whether or not that works,
Yeah, it didn't work.
I've never done it.
It didn't work for Hunt Stand at all, and it was probably user error. I'm sure that it does work, but I could not get it to work at all. It would say that it downloaded the map, but then I couldn't find the map anywhere. So definitely something I was doing. But yeah, man, it's an awesome hunt. It's more like a hunt club, old school hunt club mentality. So some of those guys have been hunting for 40 plus years, and it's fun. I mean, they are very open with information on where they're hunting and where, what they're seeing. Nobody's real secretive about what they're looking at and what they're hunting on. So everybody wants everybody to be successful in that little 3 day hunt that you're there. And we eat pretty good when we're out there, and sit around a fire. We met some guys that were local down there. I met some guys from Indiana. One guy had a slingshot bow. He wasn't hunting with it, but we got to shoot it into a target that he brought out there, and that was really cool.
That's pretty neat.
It made me
He
want to
built
be
it
able
at
to
home
hunt
or
with
something?
one. He bought it from somewhere that specializes in stuff like that. I think maybe it's the same one that Tim Wells has used, the
Hmm.
guy that kills stuff with spears and all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it shoots pretty fast. It took some getting used to. Didn't shoot it enough to really get good at it, but there was a guy there that shot it over and over and over, and he was hitting the same spot every time. So, you could definitely kill something at 15, 20 yards with that thing the way you had it set up.
That's pretty neat.
But yeah, it's a fun hunt, man. I'd like it if you went out there. And it's a 5 hour ride down, so you just you know you kind of got to use
It's actually
your
closer to me than
hunter's
it is to
hunter's
you.
wits and woodsmanship. Yeah, I think it's only like 3.5 or 4 hours from you.
Mm-hmm. 3.5, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to use your hunter's wits and woodsmanship when you go down there, especially when you don't have any history on the island. It's still, I mean, it's big enough that as much as I walked, as much property as I looked at, I still know nothing compared to what I could know if I got to scout for 2 or 3 days. One, and not just hunting, and two, if I'd spent 4 or 5 years hunting down there.
I will put in for it next year. It sounds like fun. Sounds like sounds like it's a challenge. I'm always down for that, as I
Yeah,
have rambled on
it's
about.
a blast.
But
It's a blast down there.
yeah. I was trying to think. I guess I can go into my little stints this year. I haven't, like I said, I haven't been able to get out a whole lot this year, but had a couple times in the woods. It's been nice. You can seeing
Yeah,
animals in the
you've made
woods
the
is
most out of
always
it when you
amazing.
go out.
Try to, man. I mean, the archery season for me was, I wouldn't say a wash, but it definitely wasn't what I had hoped. We went up to the farm. I had the feeder running, and deer were coming in, and I just every single time my goal was it was a meat hunt. I wanted to take some does off the property, and every single doe that walked in had a spotted fawn with it. And I know they say like, you know, they end up going back with another doe group or something, they'll be just fine. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt too bad when they when the doe or when the fawn was suckling on the doe. I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna happen.
Probably shouldn't shoot that one.
Yeah, I was like, I feel too bad about it. One of them had a fawn that was pretty close to. It was like it had like two spots on its neck. Everything else was brown. But I was like, yeah, I would feel too bad. So ended up passing on all that, and just Thanksgiving, right? Was it before or after Thanksgiving? It was right after Thanksgiving, I think. Right around here on some public land, I snuck in the woods. I got the okay from the missus and snuck into a spot. My primary goal. It was cold, actually. It was one of the nicer days in Florida, and my primary goal was to go
Cold
back to the
at
spot.
70 degrees, 65,
No,
70.
it was in the 50s when I was out there.
Oh, that's freezing temperatures down there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was down in the 30s that night, so it was cooling off pretty quick too. So I mean, like I said, my primary goal was I knew that wood ducks go back to the spot. And I was like, man, if there's wood ducks back there, I'm going to go back in here with a shotgun and clean house. And so something from the hurricanes was the area that I hunt was completely flooded out, and I think they actually closed the WMA for a while, and so I was a little nervous going back in, like how wet is it going to be? Because this particular swamp is pretty wet on a good day. And as I'm driving back there, typically when you turn off the main road, one of the forest roads, you're going to drive through a couple puddles, and that's just how it is. No water. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I don't know if it's all receded or not, but this is kind of cool. And get out of the truck, no mosquitoes, nice and chilly. It's like, this is perfect wind for the spot. I picked the spot because of the wind and because I wanted to see the ducks. And so I walked down the forest road, still no water, make my turn into the woods, and it's actually crunchy dry. And I'm like, oh, all right, this might be a good little area to set up at. So the spot is a solid maybe 400 yards off the forest road. And so I start trekking maybe 300 yards off the forest road. I start trekking through it just really slow. I mean, like one step, look, one step, look. I'm sitting here telling myself, why didn't I bring a fucking shotgun? There's squirrels everywhere. Could have limited out on squirrels in half an hour. And I had my 300 Win Mag with me, and I'm looking through the brush, and I'm like, this is definitely overkill, but it'll,
You're
you know.
trying to skin the deer if you shot it.
Well, in all fairness, I expected to see a hog before I see a deer, and I was like, I'm not tracking a hog through all this mess. I want it to be dead. So
Hmm.
that was my thought process there. Get back to this swamp where the ducks are, and the creek's flowing. It's flowing good, and I notice on the edge, the swamp butts up to a nice pine forest. On the edge, there's this trail that was just worn through, and it had hog tracks in it. It had deer tracks in it. I was like, man, they are using the hell out of this. And I think I got in the woods. What I tell you? I think I got in at like 3 p.m. or something, maybe 2:50, something like that.
Yeah, we were on the. I think I called
Yeah,
you
you
right
did.
as you were setting up.
Yeah, I get to the edge of the swamp, and the furthest I could see was about 30 yards. And I was like, man, it's a perfect wind, but I just feel because I don't have a lot of time right now being at home. I
Yeah.
was like, I had my binoculars on. I was like, I should go find some palmettos and just like do some looking more than anything. And I don't know what it was. I was just like, screw it, just relax, just sit down. I found a nice comfy tree, sat down like I was turkey hunting. You called because I didn't think I was going to see anything. I was like, I'll take his call.
Man,
Hey, man.
I'm in the woods.
I go, hey, man. And immediately, are you hunting? I was like,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I was like, yeah, she let me go. And you were just like, all right, well, good luck. I was like, yeah, I'll call you later. I swear on my life, dude, it was not a minute and a half
You could have
later.
just hung up the phone.
Dude, it was a minute and a half later, I hear, and I'm like, hey, no fucking way. And I look over to my side and I see Brown walking at me, and I'm like, its head was down. So I was like, yeah, all right, it's probably a doe, whatever. I get the gun ready just in case. It's off safety, and it's laid across my lap. It lifts its head up and looks around. It's munching on something. I have no idea what it was eating. I don't even know what was growing in that because it had been underwater for the longest time. And it was chewing on something. I just see, you know, antlers. I'm like, okay, this could happen. And
Yep.
I'm sitting there counting points. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely got at least 3 in Florida on WMAs. Most WMAs, it's got to have 3 points at least an inch or longer. I was like, and that's all I cared about at that point. I was like, well, buddy, if you give me a shot, you're gonna die. So at that point, he was probably at about 20 yards. He walks in another 10 and takes a hard turn. He's off to my left. He takes a hard turn to his left. So he's giving me a perfect broadside shot. And I put the scope up on him, and at 3 power, it was just brown in the scope. It was browned out. I'm like, all right, well, there's his elbow, and I just went up from his elbow. It's like, good enough. Bang. The thing mule kicks. It wasn't a mule kick. It was more like he kind of hunched up and bucked almost
Okay.
and took off. And I'm watching him take off, and he's running like I didn't hit him. I'm like, what the fuck? Like there's no way. Like I just sighted this gun in. I was like, there's no way that I missed.
It was
And
too close.
everything's going through my mind. I'm like, how? Like immediately, I'm like, it was a 300 Win Mag. It didn't have enough chance to mushroom. Like it just blew right through him, or I missed completely, or I hit something. I was like, and it was a perfect shot when I realized later. But I get up to where he was at. I paced it out. It was 8 yards, and I look down, and I'm like, that's when I sent you that picture. I was like, well, that's blood.
There's a drop of blood.
It was good blood. I was like,
It was
all
like
right.
3 minutes, 4 minutes after we got
The
off the phone
only
too that you showed me
only
the blood.
reason the only reason it took so long is because out there's bad service. It took forever to send that photo. It would have been 2 minutes max.
And normally you'd wait to go see what you hit, but at 8 yards and being on the ground already, it's just like, it's 8 steps away from your
Right.
standing. How
I
much
wasn't
further are you going to push him if you go
I
look for
wasn't
blood?
waiting. I didn't hear him fall or anything. I was like, man, I don't know what just happened, but then I saw the blood. I was like, oh, this track job is gonna suck because right on the edge of the swamp, and of course he goes straight for the water. So I'm like, I got to get a dog if I'm going to do anything. I ended up thankfully doing a couple laps. I walked out through the swamp and I happened to look up and I see him laying down. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Was he in the water?
He was in the water, ankle deep water, nothing spectacular. But I was like, oh, thank the Lord. Of course, I'm sitting there looking for moccasins and stuff the whole time. I'm like, oh God, no snake boots on.
But you got a 110, 120 pound deer that you're now is also waterlogged
Yep,
that you're
yep,
trying to drag.
100%. And I walk up to him and I was like, little 7 point. All right, I'll take it. Like, Florida 7, not
Nice deer.
spectacular. Yeah, no, I was happy. I was very happy, and dragging him out made me realize how out of shape I am in the cardiovascular area. But yeah, it made me miss having a buddy to help me drag him out. To be honest with you, it was good, man. It was fun. Man, probably altogether, I was in the woods for 30 minutes. You couldn't have rode it any better. And it's so funny because we were talking about the cameras. I was like, do I bring my camera? I could bring it out there and do a little video action and stuff like that. And of course, talk myself out of it, and of course, have a deer walk in.
You wouldn't
So
have had time to hit record even though hardly on that.
probably not. He would have seen me do it all. I was being as still as I could up against that tree, and I was just like, just be one with the tree, man. And he had no clue I was there. I mean, that when I was wearing Axe deodorant, my wife had washed my camo in Gain, I'm sure.
No,
Yeah, I have no doubt because she had them all folded up for me, which I appreciate. But at the same point, I was like, could you please not do that? And I was just like, man, if it's
she's
gonna
trying to be
happen,
helpful.
she was, and hey, that just goes to show you if you hunt the wind and you do everything right, then you can still make it happen. And yeah, man, it was cool. And after I got him out of the woods, I ended up looking. The entry wound was about an inch and a half lower than the exit wound, just to show you.
Because you were sitting on the ground.
I was sitting so low and he was so close. I ended up shooting up through him, which his lungs were completely gone. I don't know how he made it the 20 yards he made it. I don't know how he didn't fall over writhing in pain. That just goes to show
You
you how
sure when you
freaking
shot
strong
him
they
with the
are.
300, it didn't pick it up and throw it into the swamp?
Right, exactly. Exactly. But I was like, man, thank God he dropped because all of that bleeding was internal. I mean, there was
It didn't.
nothing coming out.
He wasn't leaking at all.
Not at all. I mean, even dragging him out, he was barely leaking out of that exit wound. And I was like, thank God that he was just sitting right
And a
there.
lot of times when you're hunting on, I mean, I love hunting on the ground. I've done a lot of it more than the last 3 years, 4 years. I've killed some really nice deer on the ground, but you never get. It seems like you never get a whole lot of blood because it's a, it's almost a parallel shot.
Yeah.
Even if you're
Yeah.
standing up, it's a
Yeah. You
parallel
don't
shot going through, and
realize
they have to
when,
fill up to that point before the blood comes out.
exactly, you don't realize when you're shooting down how beneficial that is just for tracking. Because when it goes down and goes through, well, now you've got an exit wound that's lower than the entry wound, and everything's just going to pour out of that. And if,
Yeah,
whatever, if you hit a big artery or
unless you
something
hit an
like that,
artery or something, then it's
right,
spraying out. But that's
right,
the only time
exactly,
that happens.
exactly, exactly. But I mean, I that blew me away. I was like, well, thank God he fucking dropped where he did because that would have been bad. And hey, man, I got meat in the freezer, so I'm happy about it. It was well worth it. I called the missus as I was on the way to check him, and I was like, hey, I almost died. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I just had to drag a deer 400 yards out of the damn woods. She's like, you shot something? I was like, yeah, well, that was kind of the goal.
She just thought it was a scouting mission.
That's right. She was like, I'll just let him go in the woods for a little bit just to get him to shut up. Little did she
Well, now
know.
you get to eat on it. Well, will she eat it?
Yeah, every now and then she'll eat a little bit, but she's not. I'll tell you who eats the hell out of it is Zane, my son. I made
Yeah.
steaks the next night out of the backstrap for he and I. Man, he tears it to pieces. He loves it. So I'll do a steak for her, like a beef steak for her, and then I'd cut up the backstrap for he and I, and then probably do some grilling
Luckily
and some
for
roasts.
me, luckily for me, my kids love it. They'll eat the backstrap. I'll either fry it or most of the time do steaks out of it, or cube steak. I do country fried steak with that, and that's I think
So good.
probably their favorite. And then we don't eat. I don't think I've bought hamburger meat in since we moved to Georgia. Was it in 2016 that we moved up here
Mm.
from Florida?
God, it's
And
been
I
that
haven't.
long.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it, but I haven't bought beef. I don't think since then. Really, we've just killed between three now. We need 60 a year. I've only killed one this year because I keep and now the kids are older and I keep wanting them to get their chance at them, so I don't shoot the does or anything like that. And if they don't pile them up over Christmas break, I'm gonna go out and start piling them up. But my girlfriend's the same way. She actually has her own hunting club, her own camper at the hunting lease, her own
It's always
spots.
nice. Sounds like
Yeah, yeah,
positive.
yeah. When we started dating, she says, "Listen, during hunting season, I might not see you as much." I'm like, "Okay," so that's great because I
This is
might not
gonna
see you
work.
as much either. Yeah, and it turns out we've hunted with each other probably more than or at least at each other's places more than we've hunted separately. But her and her kids do the same thing. They eat deer like crazy. So now, if I want to make sure I have enough for them to eat when they come over and my kids, I'm probably going to have between 6 and 8 deer in the freezer. So
You have to
got to
get another
start.
freezer.
I have three.
Dang, good to go. You're set up.
One's the pork, the hogs that we
Yeah, yeah.
raise.
Hogs and the
One's for
chickens, right?
deer, and one's for the chickens that we raise. So
Okay, gotcha.
try not to go buy meat at all if we don't have to.
That's nice. Self sufficiency is key.
Yeah, but that's for a different podcast. The homestead.
Absolutely. Yeah, but still, that's sweet, man. That's good stuff. I when Zane tears into that, because I'll cook it. Actually, to be honest with you, this backstrap, I literally just cut it into well, not chunks. I cut it into steaks
Hmm.
and seasoned it, little Everglades seasoning, and threw it on the pellet grill and just cooked it that way. And dude, he freaking piles it down. It's pretty sweet. And he's like, "This is so good." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
When I do I usually make the steaks out of the back strap and I'll butterfly it so they're
Mm-hmm.
medallion size like fillet. And so I'll put that and I'll just do a little salt, pepper, garlic, and then put like just a half a tab of butter on top of them while it's cooking, so it kind of
Yep.
melts over it because there's not a whole
Yep.
lot of fat in it.
Yep. I normally do
And
the
I think
same
I
thing.
cook it to like 130,
You ever done
130 degree internal.
a cowboy butter?
Mm-mm.
Poured that. Oh my god, dude! I was gonna do it the other
No, but I
night
do melt
because
it down and let it sit in it
yeah.
whenever I pull it off. Pull it off at about 130 and I set it on the plate and then I put
Mm-hmm.
melted butter on it and it kind of draw it up. Guess what they do at a steakhouse? And I think it cooks to like 138 degrees inside, something like that. And it's like a rare, medium rare. You can't really have a much over medium rare venison steak,
Yeah, it
or
turns
it's
into
tough if you
rubber.
have it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but man, it's so good when you hit that between 135, 138. It's delicious.
dude. Next time, get you some butter melted down, thyme, like fresh thyme, a little garlic, paprika, red pepper. I want to say I throw something else in there. I can't remember. Mix that all up, and then I baste it with that. Oh my god, it's so good.
Good stuff.
Oh god, it's just freaking delicious.
I guess I'm gonna have to go thaw one out now and cook one tonight. Talking about it.
I'm definitely going to here in a minute. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I ain't got a whole lot else for right this second.
For this particular one, I do. The kids are gonna be here December 20th, and they'll be here through January 5th, I think. So we're gonna hopefully be piling some up over the next couple of weeks. I'm actually going to my girlfriend's club this weekend too. I'm just taking. I haven't decided if I'm going to take my compound or my recurve. I'm not taking a rifle. I don't think. I might change my mind by Friday
Take
night
the
before we leave.
rifle. Just take the rifle.
I don't know. I saw a bunch of hogs there last weekend and I didn't shoot them. But the club president was like, "Man, go shoot those hogs. You got to shoot those hogs." I said, "Okay." But if I shoot them, I want to shoot them with a bow. And I really want to shoot something with the recurve. So I
Yeah, it'd be
may
sweet.
just take the compound and the recurve, and then make a last second decision and take my one stick and just hunt wherever they don't hunt. Most of those guys hunt. They have feeders and they have their primary areas that they hunt, and
The
I'll
giant
just
300
go.
acre, 300-yard food plots that they mow.
No,
Looks like a golf
most of
course.
them they don't do that, but they do have their corn feeders and they kind of mow areas. Most of them don't have more than say 100-yard shot, and a lot of them are set up so that they can shoot with their bow or crossbow during archery. They can shoot to the feeders, but they do hunt a little different than I do, and that's okay. Whatever gets them out there, and and they have success out there doing it. It's just not my style, so I'll go. I'll either go sit with her, which I think her dad's going to be there this weekend, so she'll probably sit with him. I'll go, just find a place to go where nobody's at, where nobody has spots at, and just find something new. It's new land for me, new territory. So if I don't see anything and I'm just getting to walk in the woods and see sign and maybe see some animals like I saw the hogs last weekend, that works for me. It's fun. So
Yeah, I'm
well,
getting ready to work on the trolling motor on the boat. I'm either going to take it out tomorrow morning or go in the woods because she's getting some time right now. So I'm going to do one or the other. I ain't decided yet. And then we'll be up at the farm at the end of December. So we'll be.
okay, and that's getting right at peak rut up there, isn't it?
It's funny you say that. Yes, from everything that I have witnessed up there, it is a later rut, like early January, late December. I have on camera a 8 point, probably 3-year-old. Did I send that to you?
Yeah, where he's crossing
He's
crossing
crossing.
the little road you're talking about.
Yep, he's crossing the driveway actually, and it's right near the power lines. And you hear him in the video just burp, burp, and you can see off
Oh, I
in
couldn't
the
hear that.
distance. You can see a doe, and he just goes straight for the doe. And I was like, huh, that's interesting because that was mid-November, and I was like, well, maybe they had an earlier rut this year. You never know. I mean, maybe she came into estrus early and atypical. Because if I'm being honest, I haven't seen it at all on camera since.
There's
But
always an early doe. I mean,
right,
we've here the I live near Athens, Georgia, is between say the third and the ninth is our peak time. But I have bucks that are harassing does in the last week of October. Down at my lease in Louisville, our peak is call October 19th your peak, October 20th the peak. And I've had bucks actually mounted on camera on does at the end of September down there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you always have one come in, and my dad's killed a couple of bucks actually the last week of season down in Louisville, and that's usually around January 15th. He's killed a couple of different bucks last week, the very last week of the season that were he'd have 7 or 8 bucks chasing one of those
yeah. She just.
yearlings that's come in late.
I was gonna say if they haven't come in yet, then they'll come in later.
Yep,
Any of the does that don't go into estrus yet, that's where you get your second and third ruts that everybody talks about is the does that have not cycled through yet or have not been bred yet. And
yeah. Or
it,
your the final one is those really young yearling
yep,
does like that were born this year that'll come into
yep,
their
yep,
first cycle,
yep.
say in December or January.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But we're so all over the place in Georgia. I mean, it's the first week of October down, on the coast and all the way to, mid to late December around the Chattahoochee National Forest. It's all over. And then you go west over into Alabama, and I think they have a rut into January and February sometimes, or at least their
Yeah.
season goes into February.
One of the guys I want to get on here, Dylan, he has property in the south side of Eufaula, I believe, and he doesn't see. I mean, they haven't even started to lay scrapes down yet. He was just out there the other
Wow.
day. Yeah, I mean, he's got one on camera that he sent me, and you could tell he's clearly on a doe. But I mean, it's late. I mean, he doesn't see activity like that until January, and then their season actually runs through February, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's like February 15th or something like that.
Yeah, that's wild. You're gearing up for turkey season at that point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I didn't show you this. Forgot we had these made.
I like that. That's good stuff.
It looks backwards though. Is it backwards on your end?
No, it's looks like the
It
John
is. It is
Deere
what I'm
symbol
looking
and
at.
says fast food.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah,
I like it.
I forgot who made these for us, but I saw it in my drawer and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put that on and have it for the podcast. But unfortunately, all you can see is this little bitty rack at the top.
Well, it was in the
Looks
50s here,
like
so I'm rocking. You
looks
know,
like
you're getting
this little
old
one
when you
here.
go to Costco and you're like, you know what? That flannel looks pretty nice. I might have to get me one of those. $12 flannel from Costco. I'll take it.
Dude, flannel is like that's my deal now. I wear it now that it's cold again.
Oh,
I wear
God.
a flannel shirt every single day.
If I could, I would. But
I
yeah,
think about the weather a lot more. I think about, the warm clothes I'm going to wear outside. I think about the garden I'm going to grow.
mm-hmm.
That's the stuff I'm in now. Where it used to be, what bar am I going to go to? What girl am I going
Mm-hmm.
to try to talk to? Not no
Yeah, getting
more.
old. Getting old ain't all bad. The adulting part sucks, but
Yeah. Bills, things like that. So if anybody wants to help out with the podcast or help out with our bills, I need to go buy some more ramen this week. I think I'm about 4 packs short of making it through the end of the week. So any help would be
that's just for
great.
your carbs. You already outed yourself. You got plenty of meat.
I
Got
do got
hogs and
plenty of meat.
chickens.
Yeah, yeah. Got to have a
Good
side.
stuff.
Got to have that ramen for a side. That's my salt intake is the ramen. 1 pack for the whole week.
That's all you can, or else you go into
Yep.
freaking heart failure.
Swell up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, buddy. That was good stuff. We'll pick it up again here and hopefully the next week or so.
Yep, yep, sounds good, man. If you haven't liked and subscribed to listen to our podcast, what are we on? Spotify and
Spotify and Apple and pretty much
probably
anywhere you can
all of
get
them.
podcasts. Yeah, you just got to search "Stay Elevated Outdoors" and it'll be right there. You'll hear our lousy voices coming across your sweet speakers.
If you want to see our ugly faces, you can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and get to see
That's right.
our mediocre deer and turkeys that we have behind us, and
That's right.
the stories that may or may not be true. You can also like us on Facebook at Stay Elevated. I think it's just Stay Elevated Outdoors, and
Instagram.
Instagram at Stay Elevated. But yeah, man, it's fun. Hopefully, we can just keep on rolling, do this once a week, and have something real to talk about.
Yep, absolutely. Good stuff, man.
All right, buddy. We'll talk
I'll
again
talk to you
soon.
later. Yeah, bub.
See you.